Hi, my name's Stuart Clough, CEO of Noisenet, and I'm here today to talk to you about animal noise, communities and welfare. I'm videoing in from Australia, so complete opposite end of the earth, and we're waiting in the vendor area, staying awake through the night, waiting for the opportunity to have a chat with you at any stage through the conference, so please come have a chat. What I want to talk to you about today are a few things. We're going to give you an intro to who we are as Noisenet. We want to talk a little bit about science, a little bit about the science of noise, a little bit about the science of health. Then we want to talk about the problem of noise nuisance and noise management. And we're talking dog barking here. That's the major factor. And then when we talk about that in terms of community management of noise issues, then we're going to touch on an issue that may be more relevant for many of you in the audience, which is looking at addressing noise in animal shelters. So let's roll on. So who are Noisenet? We're a solutions-driven startup. We focus in the noise area. We have a range of different technologies available. Our fundamental premise is that technology is available, low cost, connected electronics, and automated artificial intelligence analysis gives us the ability to much more effectively and much more cost effectively analyze noise information. Our objective is to create a happier and more tranquil world. We partner predominantly with noise regulators and sometimes those who are responsible for managing or creating noise to help more efficiently resolve noise problems. Fundamentally, what we're working with is the measurement and analysis of noise. We have developed a smart noise monitoring technology that is extremely low cost. It's fully automated. It gets as complex as plugging something into the PowerPoint. We upload the data, we analyze the data. And it can be used, that single device can be used for a wide range of different noise issues. Our solution is essentially device in the field, upload data through the mobile network, analyze it in the back end, and then we generate reports, dashboards, or alerts to give you the information that you need. So an example here is monitoring barking duration over a period of 14 days, hour by hour through the day, the duration of barking. And in this case, highlighting one particular hour where there was extreme barking. That sort of data, that hundreds of hours of data, is something that has never before been affordably available to noise regulators, for us councils, for you municipalities and cities. And this is affordable. This is something we can do for $200 per site. We also have a directional noise monitoring capability. These use arrays of microphones to be able to determine where a noise is coming from. So that gives us an additional layer of information that helps enrich the noise data. And we'll touch on a fantastic example of that that's very relevant, particularly for those of you in shelters. Here's an example of one of those directional monitors located at a fence line to be able to tell the difference between animal A, B, C, or D, which one is barking, which one is causing the problem. Our customers, we work with over 30 authorities in Australia. And we are in the process of doing trials. We have 20 authorities signed up for trials in the USA, and we hope to add to that number in Canada over the coming days. So, noise complaints, community noise complaints are a huge issue. They are the biggest source of complaints for most municipalities and cities. And generally, they do a horrible job of dealing with them. So let's step back and talk a little bit about the science first. So noise is a precise science, but it's a very complicated one. As we start to get people involved, the human impacts are even less precise. And the human impacts happen at many different levels, from intensity, from time of day, from stresses, from sensitivity, from a whole lot of different factors. Despite that variability, the health impacts are real. There is an increasing wealth of evidence from peer-reviewed science, particularly large longitudinal studies out of Europe, that is correlating exposure to intrusive noise, unwanted noise, that isn't just affecting people's hearing, it isn't just affecting their sleep at night. It's been correlated with stress hormone levels, it's been correlated with fertility levels, it's been correlated with heart disease, with type 2 diabetes, even contracting and survival rates for certain types of cancer. So is noise the new smoking? Well, no, it isn't. There's a big difference. Smoking actually harms you. The chemicals in the smoke cause harm to your body. Noise can damage your hearing, but the impacts of noise are more about weakening your defenses. We know that noise increases stress hormone levels. When your stress hormone levels are higher, that affects your sleep. Now, our daily circadian rhythm takes us through a wake, through a restful phase, into a light sleep, into a deep sleep. Very simplified. Higher stress levels reduce the duration that you're asleep and also reduce the percentage of time that you're in deep sleep, possibly even eliminating it. Now, deep sleep is our elixir of youth. That is when our body does its most efficient work in repairing the body. Every day we have damaged cells, inflammation, wear and tear, and it's in that deep sleep phase that our body cleans that up. If you're exposed to extreme noise during the day, or particularly at night, you lose those repair mechanisms. Those damaged cells are not mopped up. Do they grow? Do they become cancerous? The inflammation persists, damaging you through multiple days and potentially triggering diabetes or heart disease or these inflammatory driven diseases. Noise is a real issue, and noise regulators are the people in our community that are given the task of managing that noise issue. So mental health, physical health, the evidence is in. Noise is a problem. And often those people who are dealing with noise complainants will classify someone as crazy, as irrational, as persistent, as a serial complainer. Well, if you're sleep deprived, if you're stressed, if you're sick, if you feel like there's no way out, often people won't come across as being irrational in those situations because they need an escape. They're desperate for an escape. So let's look at regulation. Well, we all have regulations around noise. And even though dog barking is the single biggest cause of nuisance noise complaints, the regulations are the worst, definitively the worst. Here's an example, Canadian example. I won't go through it, but I'll highlight. Disturbs the quiet, peace, rest, enjoyment, comfort or convenience of the neighbourhood or of persons in the vicinity. It uses terms like frequent and persistent. It's qualitative. They're so arbitrary. Each individual person is going to assess those differently. What is disturbing the quiet? What is frequent? What is persistent when it comes to dog barking? It's an individual thing. And judges, who ultimately are the arbiters in this case, in the absence of quantitative measures, they have their own impressions as well. Does that judge have a dog? Does that dog bark? It's probably the most relevant thing when you're going to court. And it shouldn't be that way. So generally our regulations and our rules and our laws are unhelpful to resolve managed noise. And so as a result, we see the different types of cases falling into 4 different categories. We have the extreme barking cases that generally can be solved fairly easily. There are the borderline cases where most authorities are too afraid to progress to the point where they could be challenged in court. They don't feel they have the evidence, and so they let them slide. There are the no evidence cases where someone keeps complaining but never can the regulator gain third-party evidence. And those ones just drag on and on and on. And then, of course, the final one is the high-stakes case. This is the person who won't give up, the person who calls a lawyer at every turn, who escalates, threatens physical violence or abuse. Out of those 4 different categories, number 2 and number 3 make up probably 90% of the cases. And yet the system doesn't deal with either of those effectively. It's failing. So as a community, as a society, and particularly the noise regulators, are we stuck? Are we stuck? Struggling to resolve many complaints, lack of evidence, standards that aren't enforceable, lack of resources to be able to do things the way you would like, driving you to do nothing rather than to do something. And ultimately, toxic complaints remain and people are suffering noise, nuisance, disruption to sleep, ill health, and all of these sorts of things. So Noisenet, based on our hundreds of thousands of hours of noise monitoring, of assessing the science of noise and the issues around health and noise, we want to propose a different criterion. We're looking at the science, the health. We're looking at a criterion, a set of definitions that are linked to the impacts that that noise has on people. And then we want to back it up with robust evidence gathering techniques so that regulators are in a position of authority that lets them control the situation and either encourage animal owners to take appropriate action or, failing that, to enforce. Our measure would have 3 key components. The first and the most important is waking events. We're going to look at noise intensity, volume, and duration and assess the number of times a particular nuisance is likely to wake the residents who are complaining during the night and have a cap on that. Second, we're going to look at the noise energy associated with nuisance. Firstly, in those waking events, but also in a shorter duration for that short-term high-intensity barking and longer-term across the entire day, just that noise that will never stop. And then we also want to take in consideration proximity of the animal to the property and also the situation of the complainants. Do they have ill health? Are they work shift and they need to sleep during the day, and other considerations like that. Our approach can be used without technology. So conventional approaches of the standoff, sitting outside and listening for the barking, using a noise diary from a complainant. And a measure, how loud, how long. They're the 2 key components. Right now, most measures are how long, but not how loud. We need both. And of course, our technology, which offers you 24/7 data, can bring all of this together extremely accurately and map it out on a daily basis over a prolonged period of time. These sorts of regulations offer huge benefits because it gives the regulator the data on a third-party basis. There's no bias there. We're just reporting facts. And it gives them a position of strength to be able to take control of the situation and focus then on the animal. Focus on, why is this dog barking? You need to take these steps. And our data, because it tells you the times the dog is barking, and it can even be used to classify the type of barking. Is it distressed barking? Is it bored barking? There are opportunities for proactive welfare management of the animals in this situation to help solve the problem efficiently. It's not just about throwing out a fine, it's about mitigating the situation. Now, to bring it probably closer to home to many of you in the audience, is the animal shelter. Now, we all know that animal shelters are a source of a lot of noise, particularly the dogs. And that one dog barking triggers more, any sort of activity, it becomes a culture with the animals there of barking. It's just persistent, and it happens far and wide. Every shelter has these issues. But just as noise is a nuisance for human beings, this is also creating stress for dogs and other animals that are in your shelter environment. Insomnia, triggering aggression, behavioural issues, and these are animals we're trying to rehome. We want them to be socialised. We want them to be calm. We want them to be welcoming. We don't want them being crazy and out of control and threatening. And this barking becomes a pattern. Is it habitual? And is that an issue that gets carried home? And of course, whoever works in that shelter, do you wear earplugs? Because you should. It will be damaging your hearing. It's well and truly above occupational health and safety noise levels. Here's an example, okay? This is an urban monitoring situation, 2 different properties. The first property, over 7 days, no detected barking nuisance. The regulator then moved our device to the next location, and we found 7 periods of time where there were exceedances. So that's a notifiable complaint, and that one is actually going through the courts in Western Australia at the moment. This is our nearby animal shelter over a similar duration. Every single day has more barking than the entire week that is being dealt with in court in Western Australia right now. And some of those days have 3 times as much barking. In fact, more than 3 times as much barking. So it is a serious issue. So what can we do about it? Obviously, this is going to be affecting your neighbours and your residents, so this is something that probably would be a good idea to address. So what we're proposing is using our directional noise monitoring technology. If you could imagine a device located relatively central in your dog pen area, and we can monitor when there's a bark and where it comes from. And over time, we'll be able to identify which enclosures are the source of the majority of barking. If there's a quiet period, we can identify where the first bark comes from. Is there an animal that triggers these barking sessions? And this is automated, so it'll run all night. We can tell you which dog is waking the others at night. It gives you a tool to be able to focus effort on the smaller number of animals that are contributing the majority to the problem. And so doing, hopefully, we'll be in a position to tackle the noise issue. Now, we have several shelters in Australia that are interested in looking at this as a technology, and we're proposing a study with them. We also have several shelters in the US and an academic in North Carolina who is keen to undertake a proper science-based study on this. So we would love to talk to 2 or 3 shelters in Canada as well to potentially participate in this study. So to conclude, by bringing science of noise and of health to the problem, by bringing consistent and agreed criteria that relates to the real impact of noise, and coupling that with an easily applicable and efficient means of gathering data, we believe we can dramatically change the way noise nuisance is managed in our communities. And as a result, improve community happiness, well-being, reducing conflict, and we can tackle the root cause as well. Why are these dogs barking? And hopefully deliver a better outcome for everyone involved. So our ask at this stage, we are a small company, we are in a very small niche, and we are expanding into North America now. We want to talk to the noise regulators. Now, I know many of you are in the humane space, in the shelter space. If you can put us in touch with your local noise regulators, the city, the municipality, that would just be awesome. And if you're involved yourself, please come talk to us. And finally, if you are working with a shelter and you would like to participate in a study around noise in shelters, we are sitting with little sticks in our eyes to try and stay awake, waiting for you to come and talk. So thank you for staying till the end, and look forward to the opportunity to talk further. Thank you.